Hi, I'm Chad with Move for Guitar. This lesson is from our series Music Theory for Guitar. In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to take a major triad shape and by moving one note at a time, get a minor triad, a diminished triad, and an augmented triad. First off, download our free e-guide, Music Theory for Guitar. It contains everything that I'm talking about in this lesson, all the charts and diagrams, as well as much more, so it'll be really useful to you. And like I said, it's free, so there's no reason not to just go download that. But I am working on it right now as I'm filming this lesson, so it may not be available as you're watching this lesson. And if it's not available yet, it'll say coming soon. And if you'd like to get notified when it is available, you can sign up for our mailing list, and we'll send you a notification for when it is available and let you download it. And also, if you're signed up for our mailing list, you'll receive all updated versions as well. But don't worry, you don't need the e-guide to follow along with this lesson because all the charts and diagrams will be on the screen. And also, we add at least one new lesson every day, so be sure to subscribe. This is lesson 2.5 from our series Music Theory for Guitar. If you'd like to go back and start at the beginning, you can click the link on the screen. In these last lessons, we've been talking about triads. You've learned what triads are, and you've learned how to build major, minor, diminished, and augmented triads. This lesson, I'm going to show you how to take a major triad, move one note to get a minor triad, move another note to get a diminished triad, and then go back to the major triad again and move one note to get an augmented triad. And this is pretty much a review of a lot of what we've covered. So you might not need this info, but I think it would be helpful to watch this to reinforce some things, and I'm going to show it to you in a different way, so I think it would be helpful to watch. So here's a major triad on the 6th, 5th, and 4th string sets. We're going to cover the other string sets in an upcoming lesson. For this lesson, we're just going to stick with these strings. And by now you know that a major triad is a root, a major third, and a perfect fifth, or a 1, 3, 5. So all we have to do to make this a minor triad is take the major third and move it down 1/2 step. And then it becomes a minor triad. And as you'll remember, a minor triad is a root, minor third, perfect fifth, or a 1, flat 3, 5. So the only difference between a major triad and a minor triad is that a major triad has a major third and a minor triad has a minor third. And then from a minor triad we can go to the diminished triad. So we just move one note. This time we're going to move the fifth, and we're going to move that down 1/2 step, and that becomes a diminished triad. Because a diminished triad, as you remember, is a root, minor third, diminished fifth, or a 1, flat 3, flat 5. And then to go to an augmented triad, we're going to start back at the major triad, and this time we're going to take the fifth of the major triad, the perfect fifth, and move it up 1/2 a step, and then we get the augmented triad shape. And that makes it a root, major third, augmented fifth, or a 1, 3, sharp 5. So the only difference between a major triad and an augmented triad is that a major triad has a perfect fifth, and an augmented triad has an augmented fifth. So you can see the difference between the major triad and the minor triad. The only difference is the thirds. The third moves down 1/2 a step to make it a minor triad. And then a minor triad and a diminished triad, the only difference is the fifth. The fifth of the minor triad moves down 1/2 a step to make it a flat 5. Then for the augmented triad, if you look back at the major triad, the only difference is the fifths again, and that's that the 5 is raised 1/2 a step of the major triad to make it a sharp 5 for the augmented triad. So that's basically just a review of what we've covered so far, but I wanted to show them all together, all the shapes together, and make sure that you fully understand what we've been talking about. And also I want to point out one more thing that you may never have thought about. I mentioned that if you play open chords, you've definitely played triads before. For example, just an open A minor chord is a triad chord but has doubled up notes in it. And I mentioned that diminished and augmented aren't common open chords, so you probably haven't played those. So we're just going to talk about the major and minor for a second. And so I just want to point out that since you know to go from a major triad to a minor triad, you just take the major third of the major triad and move it down 1/2 a step, and you get a minor third or a flat 3. That's the same when you're talking about basic open chords with doubled up notes. For example, here's an A major chord that you probably know. To make this A major A minor, all you have to do is make sure that all the major thirds are minor thirds. And in this shape right here, there's only 1/3. So this shape of A major only has 1/3. All you have to do is take this third, move it down half a step, and then that becomes this chord, an A minor chord. And so I'm sure you recognize both of these chords as basic open chords that you use. And you may never have noticed how related they really were, that the only difference is that you're taking the third of the A major, lowering it half a step, and you get an A minor. Same thing with an E major to an E minor. Here's the major third of the E major. You just lower that half a step, which makes it an open note, and then you get this E minor over here. And one more, another common minor chord that you run across with open chords is a D minor. So if you take this D major shape that you know, lower the third by half a step, you would end up with this D minor shape. So I just wanted to point that out, that it's the exact same thing even if you're dealing with open chords that have doubled up notes. All you have to do to go from a major chord to a minor chord is find any of the thirds in that chord, a lot of times there's just one, and move it down half a step, and then you have a minor chord. That doesn't work out with a lot of open chords. For example, like a G major, that's not an easy thing to do. But these that I just showed you, the A minor, the E minor, and the D minor, all easily come out of the A major, the E major, and the D major. And that's why they're common open chords, because they're easy to play on in the open position. So I just want to point that out. It's probably not something you've ever really thought about, but that's a big part of understanding triads and how chords are built, and I wanted to relate it to something you've probably used a lot. So hopefully that was a good review for you and pointed out some stuff that maybe you haven't thought about. You can go ahead and move on to the next lesson, where I'm going to show you how to play these triads on all the string sets. And be sure to download the e-guide. It has all these diagrams in it. And be sure to subscribe, because we had at least one new lesson every day.